Hello, my name is Nabil. I hope you are doing great. Welcome back to English Language Acquisition course. I hope you enjoyed the technique number 2, which I presented to you in the second video and which simply told you or advised you to repeat something many times. Today is technique 3. Now, technique 3 is learning through stories. In this video, I'm going to share with you 10 reasons why you need to learn a language through story. Technique 3 is also very important. You may have never considered learning a foreign language with stories. You might not even think it's possible. But from all my years of teaching and learning English, I've found that language learning method based on input, stories in particular, is the most powerful of all. Not only is learning with stories extremely effective, it's more fun and enjoyable too. By removing the need for a lot of the so-called study, the textbook or classroom work you probably remember from school, you'll find the day-to-day experience of language learning to be rich and fulfilling, quite unlike anything you've tried in the past. Reason 1. Stories are the heart of all communication. Stories are how we, as people, make sense of the world. From the first caveman drawings over 35,000 years ago to our walls on Facebook, we communicate by telling the people around us about the meaningful events in our lives. In fact, according to a study in Scientific American, personal stories and gossip make up 65% of our communication. If the way we all communicate is by telling or listening to stories, or one kind or another, why would you learn a foreign language in any other way? Reason 2. Enjoy your learning. It's a nice way to learn. The magic of story, whether truth or fiction, is that a story grabs your attention and captivates you. How would you rather learn a language sat in a classroom on weekday staring at an exercise book, sat at home with a cup of coffee getting lost in a page turner? There is more to this than you might think. The effective filter hypothesis is the idea that your emotional state affects your learning. If you're happy and relaxed, you're more likely to learn than if you're bored or anxious. Well, if you're trying to optimize your learning environment, you may well get on better by spending your time with stories, a medium that's meaningful and familiar, than in a classroom where you're expected to not only memorize grammar rules, but use them accurately in your speaking or writing. Now, some people thrive under that kind of pressure. My guess is you'll know which camp you fall into. Reason 3. Build your vocabulary fast. When you read or listen to stories, you have the opportunity to grow a huge vocabulary in your target language. Why? Firstly, you get exposure to a huge numbers of words. For example, I did a quick analysis of my short story in the desert, and of the 1,900 or so words in the story, there are 250 unique words, and this is just in one short story. There is no other method that can conceivably offer you so much raw exposure to your target language. If you believe that part of learning a language is spending a lot of time with that language, stories are a good bet. Secondly, within any story, you'll find repetition of key vocabulary. When you find certain words cropping up again and again at different points in the story, do you think that makes those words easier to remember? It certainly does. Compare this to textbooks, where new words are typically introduced just once in isolated chapters, and you can see how much easier it is to build your vocabulary within stories. Lastly, of course, vocabulary in a story is found in context, making it meaningful and memorable, which leads us to reason 4. Reason 4, language in context. Every word, every phrase, every preposition, every verb in a story appears in context. That means you learn which words naturally go together with other words. Just like the combination of appear, in, and context in the last sentence. You'll never learn a word without knowing how to use it, or a grammar rule without a real-life example to go with it. Unlike traditional language learning methods, with word lists, grammar rules, and exercises, stories make sure that you learn things the way they're supposed to be learned. Reason 5. Unleash your motivation. What's the single most important factor in language learning? Motivation. Your motivation to learn your new language is ultimately the sole determinant of your success. It's kind of scary to think how important it is. When people pick up a new language and then fizzle out after a few weeks, it's not because the language is hard. Really, it's not. It's because they are not motivated enough to keep at it, to show up and study day after day, even after the novelty factor has worn off. You'll never be as motivated to spend time with your target language than when you're knee-deep in a great story, with cliffhangers and plot twists, desperate to find out what happens next. Reason 6. Stories work for beginners. You can use stories to learn a language as a complete beginner. How? Well, think about the most memorable TV adverts from your childhood. The classic serialized adverts using the same characters to tell a story. Go back and watch one of them on YouTube and notice the simplicity of the language. Think how easy these would be for a beginner to study the language. The language is straightforward. The imagery is powerful. The message is clear, and the story is unforgettable. Simple stories are powerful at any level. Why else do you still remember these ads 30 years on? Reason 7. Uncover grammar from the story. Have you ever noticed that grammar rules can be hard to remember? You're not the only one. And even once you've remembered a new grammar rule, ever try using it on the spot in the middle of a fast-paced conversation? It's another thing altogether. It's simply too hard, especially for languages with more complex grammar systems. It may be convenient for teachers to base their teaching around rules, but it's not great for you. Instead of a rule-first approach, you can learn how grammar works in your target language by observing it naturally within stories. By reading the story, you get to see how grammar is being used in service of the storyline. And you can usually understand a lot, even if you don't yet know the underlying rules. Over time, you simply get used to how grammar is used. Later, if you do look up the grammar rule, it's to confirm or refine the understanding you already have, not to teach it to you from scratch. When you realize grammar doesn't have to be the painful monster you think it is, life gets better and you'll be a happier person, really. Reason 8. Ideal format for studying. Unlike watching movies or speaking with people on the street, stories come in an ideal format for studying as language learning material. By using audio narrations for the text, you are able to read what you hear and hear what you read. This makes everything more memorable and also helps you to improve your listening skills at the same time. With the text in front of you, you easily go back and review the text as many times as you want. Far easier than rewinding a movie or asking your friend to repeat the thing he just told you in conversion. Stories are the ideal format for language learning material and help you make the most of the time you have. Reason 9. All the way to fluency. We talked about using stories to learn language as a beginner, but whatever level you are at, you can use stories in exactly the same way to drive up your level from where it currently is to where you want it to be. All you need to do is choose stories that are slightly above your current level. Not too easy, not too hard, so that you're pushed without being overwhelmed. Reason 10. There is no need to speak to anyone yet. Modern teaching methods, especially what is often referred to as communicative language teaching, place an emphasis on speaking your new language from the start. But for many people, there is a lot of fear associated with starting to speak a new language with another human being. You might think, how can I start speaking when I don't know anything yet? If this is you, then learning with stories offers you a wonderful alternative. By spending your time listening and reading to entertaining stories, you simply focus on building your understanding and awareness of the language. You let new words sink in. You let grammar structures take shape in your mind. There is no need to talk to anyone if you don't want to, at least not yet. But when the time is right for you to start speaking, you'll have built up a formidable vocabulary in your target language. And you'll be able to enjoy your conversations in a more relaxed way, knowing that you're able to express yourself and follow along. Learning a language through stories is the best method I know of to pick up a new language. Achieve any goals you have for that language and enjoy yourself in the process. Hopefully, I've been able to teach you some new stuff today. Learning through stories is a very useful technique. If you use this technique to your benefit, you will certainly notice some significant improvements to your learning process. That's it for today. I hope you have enjoyed this third technique and which motivated you to learn English. Thanks for watching. Please stay tuned and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can receive new videos with new techniques about English language acquisition. See you in the next video.